This is Tom and Paula Grace from Light of Christ Radio with a story from our series on the book of Esther entitled For Such a Time as This.
You're welcome to watch this video simply for the story, or you can use it as the basis of a small group study.
The small group study instructions are below the video in the More section.
Today we continue our series For Such a Time as This with the story our series is named for from Esther 4.
Well, Paula, as we begin our conversation today, let's look at the context of our story.
Xerxes is the king of Persia, and he had banned his queen because of her insubordination. And so to replace her, there was an elaborate beauty pageant for the next queen.
Well, Esther, a Jew and cousin of Mordecai, found the favor of the king, and she became the queen.
Now, for Mordecai and Esther, all was going well until Haman became second in command to the king.
And Mordecai refused to bow down to him, and as a result, Haman decided to kill all the Jews.
So using his leverage with the king, Haman issued a decree calling for the destruction of all Jews on a specific date 11 months in the future, which brings us to a story from the Word of God.
When Mordecai learned what had been done, he ripped his clothes to shreds and put on sackcloth and ashes. Then he went out in the city streets, crying loudly and bitterly. He came only as far as the king's gate, for no one dressed in sackcloth was allowed to enter the king's gate.
And as the king's order was posted in every province, there was loud lament among the Jews, fasting, weeping, and wailing, and most of them stretched out on sackcloth and ashes.
Esther's maids and eunuchs came and told her. The queen was stunned. She sent fresh clothes to Mordecai so he could take off his sackcloth, but he would accept them.
Now Esther called for Hattach, and one of the royal eunuchs the king had assigned to wait on her, and told him to go to Mordecai and get the full story of what was happening. So Hattach went to Mordecai in the town square in front of the king's gate.
Mordecai told him everything that had happened to him. He also told him the exact amount of money that Haman had promised to deposit in the royal bank to finance the massacre of the Jews. Mordecai also gave him a copy of the bulletin that had been posted in Susa ordering the massacre so he could show it to Esther when he reported back with instructions to go to the king and intercede and plead with him for her people.
Now Hattach came back and told Esther everything Mordecai had said. And Esther talked it over with Hattach and then sent back this message to Mordecai. Everyone who works for the king here, and even people out in the provinces, know that there is a single fate for every man or woman who approaches the king without being invited: death. The one exception is if the king extends his gold scepter, then he or she may live. And it's been 30 days since I've been invited into the king.
When Hattach told Mordecai what Esther had said, Mordecai sent her this message. Don't think that just because you live in the king's house, you're the one Jew who will get out of this alive. If you persist in staying silent at a time like this, help and deliverance will arrive for the Jews from someplace else, but you and your family will be wiped out. Who knows? Maybe you were made queen for such a time as this.
Now Esther sent back her answer to Mordecai. Go and get all the Jews living in Susa together. Fast for me. Don't eat or drink for 3 days, either day or night. I and my maids will fast with you. If you will do this, I'll go to the king, even though it's forbidden. If I die, I die.
Mordecai left and carried out Esther's instructions.
And this is a story from the Word of God.
If you are using this video for a small group application, after you've watched this video, try retelling the story from what you've heard.
Then read the text. Discussion questions are below the video in the More section.
We hope you'll discover something from this story to apply to your everyday life.
May you be blessed.